Okay, so this time you guys have given us a lot to think about.
Yeah.
Really interesting stuff.
Yeah.
A lot of it pointing to robotics and healthcare and how we get the right equipment where it needs to be.
Yeah. Procurement's huge.
It is huge. And we've got kind of the whole gamut here. We've got, like industry news, and then we've got perspectives from the people who set the rules.
Right. The agencies.
The agencies, exactly. And then we've even got insights from, folks who advise on these big decisions.
Absolutely.
So I think our mission today should be to try to extract the most important points from all this stuff and give our listeners a clear picture of where robotics and medicine is going and, what really matters when we're trying to outfit, healthcare systems with the tools they need.
Yeah. What's so interesting is that we're seeing a collision almost between this cutting edge technology and the realities of actually providing healthcare.
Yes.
It's not just about innovating for the sake of it, but actually, how can these things actually help people?
Absolutely.
And make a difference.
Yeah. And I think that Cloud Tweaks article
yes.
really kind of sets the stage for why robotics are becoming so central in healthcare right now.
Yeah.
We've got, aging populations.
Right.
And they're going to need more care as they get older.
More care and different kinds of care.
Different types of care, yeah.
Yeah.
We've got more and more people with chronic illnesses.
That's right. Chronic conditions that need to be managed over time.
Ongoing management. And then, we've got this pressure on the workforce.
Absolutely. Huge shortages all over healthcare.
Yeah. So it seems like robotics is being looked to as a significant part of the solution.
I think so. It's going to have to be.
Yeah.
Because the numbers just aren't adding up for the future.
It's a huge challenge. So, the thing that really struck me is just how many different ways robotics are being used.
Well, and Cloud Tweaks kind of breaks them down.
They do.
Into 5 categories.
Yeah.
And I think that's really helpful for understanding this field as it evolves.
Yeah.
We're talking about service robots that are dealing with logistics and moving things around.
Okay.
Assistive robots that are empowering people.
Right.
Socially assistive robots that are providing emotional support.
Okay.
Teleoperated robots so that you can have expertise remotely.
Got it.
And then interventional robots, which are the ones that are doing the surgery and things.
Okay. So really a broad spectrum.
Yeah. Huge.
Yeah. And then, when you look at what's happening right now, the impact of these service robots is already here.
Oh, absolutely.
We're seeing it, think about just even within a hospital,
right? How
much more efficient it is to, move supplies around using robots.
Right.
Those UV disinfection robots.
Yeah.
Huge during the pandemic.
Hugely important.
And that's not science fiction anymore. That's happening now.
It's here.
It's here. And even pharmacy automation.
Yeah.
Actually helping to make sure patients get the right medications.
Yeah, reducing errors.
Reducing errors, yeah. And the numbers that Cloud Tweaks mentions about the sales figures.
Yes.
For medical robots in 2024 are pretty interesting.
Oh, they are?
A 36% overall increase.
Which is massive.
Yeah, that's big.
Huge growth.
And, drilling down into those figures a little bit.
Yeah.
It was interesting to see that 128% jump.
Oh, yeah.
In the rehabilitation and non-invasive therapy robots.
Yeah.
Which says something, that's a really significant shift.
Absolutely.
Towards, technology playing a really crucial role in helping people, recover and just have better well-being.
It's the future of rehab.
Yeah.
For sure.
And then, the fact that surgical robots and diagnostic robots are also growing,
yes.
At a pretty good clip, 14 and 25%.
Yep.
That says something too.
It really does.
That it's not a fad. It's it's really becoming accepted.
It's becoming the standard of care in a lot of places.
Absolutely. And then we have the assistive robots, right? And these are the ones that I think are really about giving people back their independence.
Yeah. Empowering people.
Empowering people, yeah. And they give some great examples in Cloud Tweaks, like their robotic arms, exoskeletons, and even smart wheelchairs.
Yeah.
It's almost hard to imagine the impact, for somebody who's got limited mobility.
Right.
To be able to feed themselves with a device like the Obi or the Neater Eater.
Yeah, it's life-changing.
It is life-changing.
To have that independence again.
Yeah, or to regain movement.
Yeah.
With an exoskeleton.
Yeah, it's incredible.
It's pretty remarkable.
It is.
And then, it's not just physical assistance.
No.
The socially assistive robots.
Right, the SARS.
The SARS, yeah.
I think that's a really interesting development.
It is.
Because it addresses this other need that people have.
Exactly.
The emotional and cognitive side of things, like loneliness or needing reminders to take your medication.
Yeah.
They mentioned Pero for elderly care and Mabu for chronic conditions.
Yeah, I mean, it suggests a future where technology isn't just a tool.
Right.
It's like a companion.
Yeah, a companion.
It's a support system.
Absolutely. And that's huge because a lot of people are lacking that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And then teleoperated robots.
Yes.
I mean, that's another really fascinating area.
Well, especially now.
Yeah.
Because we've all seen how important it is to have access to healthcare remotely.
Yes. During COVID, that became so clear.
Absolutely. That was the turning point.
It was a real turning point. They used the Da Vinci surgical system as an example.
Yeah.
And it's amazing, what they can do with that technology.
Yeah.
But they also pointed out that the cost is still a major barrier.
Absolutely.
To people being able to use it.
It's a big hurdle.
It is.
And until we get that cost down,
right,
it's not going to be accessible to everyone.
Right. It's a powerful tool.
It is.
But it's, the economics have to make sense.
Right. It's the economics of healthcare.
Yes, exactly. And then finally, we've got the interventional robots.
Yes.
And, we're seeing more and more precision in surgery.
Yes.
They mentioned the Mako robot for orthopedic surgery.
Yeah, it's really changed how we do those procedures.
Yeah, but what's really interesting is what's coming down the pike.
Yeah, the future.
The future, and a lot of this is still experimental.
Right, still in the lab.
Still in the lab, they were talking about micro and nano robots.
Yes.
For super targeted stuff like drug delivery.
Yeah. Targeted therapies.
It's like out of a science fiction movie.
It is like it's shrinking the technology down to the cellular level.
It is. It's pretty remarkable. Okay, so
there's lots of potential.
Lots of potential. Yeah, it's a very dynamic field.
It's a rapidly advancing field.
Rapidly advancing, but they also point out in Cloud Tweaks that there are some real challenges.
Oh yeah, there are definitely some hurdles to overcome.
Yeah, that we need to address before we see the stuff everywhere.
Yeah, widespread adoption is going to take some work.
Okay, so what are some of the big ones?
Well, cost is a huge one, as we've already talked about.
Yeah.
But also just getting people on board.
Okay.
Both healthcare professionals and patients.
Yeah.
People are understandably concerned about job security, and then there are anxieties around safety and reliability.
Yeah, I mean, if you're used to having a human being,
right,
take care of you.
Yeah.
The idea of robots can be kind of scary.
It can be unsettling.
Unsettling, yeah.
So we have to build trust.
Absolutely.
And show people the benefits.
Okay, so trust is a big factor.
Huge.
What else?
Oh, integrating these systems into the existing infrastructure in hospitals is a challenge.
Yeah, just making it all work together.
Yeah, they have to fit into the workflow.
Right.
They have to be able to talk to the current IT systems.
Yeah.
And that's not always easy.
It's complicated.
Very complicated.
Right.
And then there's the whole regulatory landscape.
Yes, the rules.
Yeah, the rules and guidelines, they're still being developed.
Right.
They haven't really caught up to the speed of innovation.
So we've got to make sure that, patient safety is being addressed.
Absolutely. That's always got to be the top priority.
Absolutely. And then one last thing that they mentioned in Cloud Tweaks that I thought was really important is we need good long-term studies.
Absolutely.
To really understand how effective these robotic systems are.
Right. We need data.
We need the data.
Long-term data.
Long-term data.
To see how these things really perform over time.
Exactly. So we know what we're getting into.
Exactly.
Okay, so challenges, yes.
Yes.
But they also highlighted some future trends and opportunities that are really exciting.
The future's bright.
Yeah. So what can we look forward to?
Well, we can expect robots to become more autonomous.
Okay.
Less need for humans to intervene.
So they can kind of do their thing.
Yeah, they can handle the routine tasks.
Okay.
And that frees up human beings to do the more complex stuff.
That makes sense.
The way we interact with robots is going to become more intuitive.
Okay.
Because of AI. So it'll be more user-friendly.
Yeah.
Easier to use, which I think will lead to greater acceptance.
Makes sense.
We're going to see a bigger role for telepresence and remote care.
Okay.
Which we've already talked about.
Yeah.
But that's only going to grow.
Yeah.
We'll see advancements in wearable robotics.
Okay.
Like exoskeletons and prosthetics.
Okay.
And the micro and nano robots.
Right.
That's a field that's just exploding.
So huge potential.
Huge potential for the future.
Okay, so that gives us a really good look at the robotic side of things.
Yeah, I think so.
But now let's talk about medical equipment procurement.
Okay.
Because this is a critical area.
Absolutely mission critical.
And the Outfitting the Future podcast
Yes.
really brought home how much money we're talking about. Yeah. Like 30 to 40% of a hospital's entire budget.
That's a huge chunk of change.
It's a massive investment.
It is.
So you really have to get this right.
Yeah, you can't just wing it.
You can't just wing it, no. And the NABH source really emphasized the importance of a team approach.
Absolutely. You need a specialized team.
Specialized team.
People who understand this stuff inside and out.
Yeah, it's not just buying stuff. You have to really understand the clinical needs.
Right. What are the doctors and nurses actually going to be using this for?
Exactly. And manage the budget carefully.
Yeah. You have to make sure you're getting the most bang for your buck.
Absolutely. And then you have to think about the design of the hospital.
Absolutely.
And how you're going to fit all this equipment in.
Yeah. The architects and engineers need to be involved early on.
It's a huge undertaking.
It is. It's a multidisciplinary effort.
Yeah. So what did NABH say about, like, the essential stages of this planning process?
Well, they laid it out really clearly.
Okay.
Start with the conceptualization.
Okay.
What services are you going to offer?
Yeah.
Then you move on to the criteria design.
Got it.
Developing the specifications for the equipment.
Okay.
And then making sure you're complying with all the accreditation standards.
Right, like NABH and JCI.
Absolutely. Those are the gold standards.
Yeah.
Then you have the budgeting phase.
Okay.
Planning and scheduling.
Right.
Selection and procurement.
Yeah.
And then finally installation and commissioning.
Oh, so a lot of steps.
Yeah, it's a complex process.
It is. And NADH also made a really clear connection between the equipment choices and the hospital's finances.
Absolutely. If you overspend or you buy technology you don't really need.
Yeah.
It can really hurt the bottom line.
And ultimately, it costs the patients more.
Exactly. Cost effectiveness is key.
Yes, cost effectiveness is key. And another really important point they made is that you have to finalize the equipment selections early.
Absolutely.
Right, during the design phase.
Early on in the process.
Why is that so important?
Well, because if you change your mind later, it can cause huge delays.
Okay.
Like the space might not be right.
Okay.
The ceiling might not be high enough.
Got it.
The electrical outlets might be in the wrong place.
So it's not just a matter of like plugging something in.
No, it's much more complicated than that.
Yeah. Okay. So now let's talk about the rules.
Okay. The regulatory landscape.
The regulatory landscape, yes.
A jungle out there.
It is a jungle. So we've got insights from the FDA in the U.S. And the EMA in Europe.
Yeah.
And it's clear that these devices are subject to a lot of oversight.
Oh, yeah. Tons of regulation.
And for good reason.
Absolutely. Patient safety has to come first.
Absolutely. So what are some of the key things that manufacturers have to do?
Well, in the U.S., the FDA has a whole bunch of requirements.
Okay.
Establishment registration, medical device listing.
Okay.
Pre-market notification, which is called a 510K.
Got it.
Pre-market approval, which is a PMA.
Okay.
That's for higher risk devices.
I got it.
Then there's an investigational device exemption.
What's that?
That's an IDE, and that's if you're doing clinical studies.
Okay.
There are quality system regulations they have to follow.
Yeah.
And they're transitioning to the ISO 13485.20 Senstein standard in February 2026.
Okay, so it's getting even more rigorous.
Yeah. They're raising the bar.
Yeah.
And then there are labeling requirements.
Okay.
And medical device reporting.
Medical device reporting.
Yeah, that's the MDR system.
And what's that for?
That's for reporting adverse events.
Got it. So if there's a problem.
Right. Any problems with the device have to be reported.
Okay, so it's a pretty thorough system.
Very thorough. They don't mess around.
They don't mess around, no. And in Europe, what's the situation there?
Well, they have to go through a conformity assessment.
Okay.
And they have to get the CE mark.
CE mark.
Yeah, to show that it meets the safety and performance requirements.
Okay, so that's kind of like the FDA approval in Europe.
Yeah, it's their equivalent.
Got it.
And they often have to go through audits.
Okay.
By notified bodies.
Your notified bodies.
Yeah, these are organizations that are approved to do the audits.
Got it. And what about those high-risk devices?
Yeah, for the really risky stuff.
Yeah.
The notified bodies have to get a second opinion.
Okay.
From expert panels.
So it's like a double check.
Exactly. They want to be extra sure.
Sure. Makes sense. And the EMA also has specific responsibilities for certain types of devices, like combination products.
Yeah, those are devices that have a drug component.
Okay.
And companion diagnostics.
Companion diagnostics.
Yeah, those are tests that are used to help select patients for specific treatments.
Okay.
And then devices that are made of substances that are absorbed by the body.
Okay, so it really depends on the device.
Absolutely. Yeah.
What the rules are.
Yeah, one size does not fit all.
Yeah. And then on top of all that, we have these accreditation standards.
Yeah, like NABH and JCI.
And this is where, those consultancy services.
Yeah, like Suprematic.
They come in.
Yeah.
And they were really emphasizing how important it is to comply with these standards.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Especially for critical care units.
Yeah.
Like the ICU or the operating room.
Right. And the fact that NABH is a constituent board of the Quality Council of India really says something.
It shows their commitment to high standards.
Yeah. They're serious about this.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground.
We have.
But let's circle back to those practical considerations for actually buying medical equipment.
Okay, let's get down to brass tacks.
Yes, let's get down to brass tacks. So the Outfitting the Future podcast outlined 3 key things to think about when you're making these decisions. First, clinical need and functionality.
Yeah. Does it actually do what you need it to do?
Exactly.
Will it meet the needs of your patients?
Yes. Second, regulatory compliance and safety.
Absolutely. You have to make sure it has all the right certifications.
So NABH, CE, FDA approval, all that good stuff.
Yeah, you don't want to buy something that's not legal.
No, you don't want to get in trouble.
Right.
And then third, cost versus value.
Yeah, that's a big one.
Yeah, and that's about looking beyond the initial purchase price.
Right.
To consider what it's going to cost you over time.
Exactly. The total cost of ownership.
The total cost of ownership.
You have to factor in maintenance, software updates, consumables.
Training, everything. So sometimes something might seem cheaper up front.
Right.
But then it ends up costing you more.
Yeah, it can be a false economy.
It can be.
Yeah.
Okay, so those are the 3 key things.
Yeah, those are the big ones.
But they also highlighted some common mistakes.
Oh, yeah.
That people make during the procurement process.
Yeah, people fall into these traps all the time.
Okay, so what are they?
Well, focusing only on the upfront cost.
Okay, we've talked about that.
Yeah. But it's worth repeating.
It is worth repeating.
Ignoring compatibility.
Compatibility with work.
With your existing systems.
Okay.
You have to make sure it'll work with what you already have.
Makes sense.
Skipping vendor verification.
Okay, so you're saying don't just buy from anybody.
Right. Do your homework.
Yeah.
Make sure they're reputable.
Okay.
Overlooking staff training.
So you buy this fancy new equipment and nobody knows how to use it.
Exactly. That's a recipe for disaster.
Yes, it is. And then finally delaying upgrades.
Yeah, you can't just keep using old equipment forever.
So at some point you have to bite the bullet.
You have to invest in new technology.
Yeah. Okay. So lots of pitfalls to avoid.
Yeah. It's a minefield out there.
It is a minefield. So how do you choose the right vendor?
Well, they gave some good advice in the podcast.
Okay.
Check for certifications.
Okay.
Make sure they have a good warranty.
Yeah.
Make sure their after-sales service is good.
So you can get help if you need it.
Exactly.
What about financing?
Yeah, for expensive equipment, you might need to finance it.
Okay.
So make sure they offer good financing options.
Okay. And what about training?
Yeah, they should provide comprehensive training.
So your staff knows how to use the equipment?
Exactly.
Okay. And they mentioned Suprematic Consultancy as a company that can help with all this.
Absolutely. They're experts in this field.
Okay. So it's good to know there are resources out there.
Yeah, you don't have to go it alone.
You don't have to go it alone. Okay. So looking ahead.
Yeah, what's next?
What's next? The podcast and that revolutionizing healthcare article highlighted some really interesting trends.
Yeah, the future is exciting.
It is exciting. So what's coming down the pike?
Well, AI-powered diagnostics.
Okay, so AI is going to be even bigger.
Absolutely. It's going to transform healthcare.
Greater integration of telemedicine.
Yeah, we're going to see more and more remote care.
Makes sense. More robotics in surgery and patient care.
Absolutely. Robots are here to stay.
Yeah, they are portable and wearable devices.
Yeah, so healthcare can come to you.
Interesting. And even eco-friendly equipment.
Yeah, sustainability is becoming a big focus.
Yeah, so it's not just about the technology, it's about the impact.
Exactly. We have to think about the environment, too.
Absolutely. And then that healthcare purchasing news article really went deep on automation and AI in the supply chain.
Yeah, that's a whole other side of things.
It is, and it's not just about the clinical equipment.
Right.
It's about making sure the right supplies are where they need to be.
Yeah, it's about logistics.
The logistics, yeah. And they were saying that automation is making a huge difference.
Oh, absolutely.
In efficiency.
Yeah, it's streamlining everything.
And it's giving hospitals better visibility of their inventory.
You know where everything is.
You know where everything is.
Yeah.
And it's making the system more resilient.
Right. So if there's a disruption, you can adapt more easily.
Okay. And they said that COVID really accelerated this trend.
Oh, yeah, big time.
Because it exposed the weaknesses
Absolutely.
of those traditional manual processes.
Yeah, it showed us where we were vulnerable.
So we had to get smarter.
We had to get smarter and faster.
Yeah. And they talked about two types of automation.
Yeah.
Physical automation.
Right.
Like using robots in warehouses.
Yeah.
And then digital automation.
Right. Using software to automate tasks.
So like ERP system.
Yeah. Enterprise resource planning.
Yeah. And all those other IT systems
Right.
that help to streamline everything.
Absolutely. It's all about integration.
Integration.
Yep.
Yeah. And they said that automation is taking over a lot of those tasks that used to be done by people.
The repetitive tasks.
Yeah.
Like processing purchase orders.
Okay.
And reconciling invoices.
So that frees up the humans
Absolutely.
to focus on the more important things.
Yeah, the strategic stuff.
Like patient care.
Exactly.
Okay, and AI is going to take all of this even further.
Oh, yeah. AI is the next frontier.
So what are some of the ways they're using AI?
Well, they're using it for reporting.
Okay.
To generate more insightful reports.
Got it.
They're using it for predictive analytics.
Okay, so to anticipate what's going to happen.
Yeah, to see what's coming down the pike.
Yeah.
And they're using it to optimize inventory.
Okay, so to make sure you have the right amount of stuff.
Yeah, not too much, not too little.
Just right, you're right. But they also made a really important point.
Yeah.
That AI is only as good as the data.
Absolutely. You need good data.
You need good data.
If you have bad data, you're going to get bad results.
So garbage in, garbage out.
Exactly.
And then they talked about this concept of a living ecosystem.
Yeah. I love that term.
Yeah, it's a good term.
It's a living ecosystem of supply chains.
Where everything is connected.
Everything is connected seamlessly.
Yeah, so it's all working together.
Absolutely. That's the goal.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground today.
We have.
But I think the big takeaways are robotics are here to stay.
Absolutely. They're changing healthcare.
Changing healthcare and procuring medical equipment is a really complex and important process.
It is. You have to be strategic.
You have to be strategic.
And you have to have a team.
You have to have a team, yeah. And regulatory compliance and quality standards.
Yeah, those are non-negotiable.
They're essential.
Absolutely.
And then finally, this whole trend of automation and AI.
Yes.
In the supply chain.
It's a game changer.
It's a game changer.
It's going to revolutionize how we do things.
So the big question is, with all these advancements, how are healthcare organizations going to adapt?
Right.
How are they going to embrace these new technologies while also making sure that they're being responsible and cost-effective?
And ethical.
And ethical, yes.
It's a lot to juggle.
It is a lot to juggle.
It's a complex equation.
It is a complex equation, and it's going to have a huge impact.
It will.
On all of us.
On the future of healthcare.
On the future of healthcare. So that's something to think about.
Yeah, food for thought.
Food for thought. Thanks for joining us today.
My pleasure.